Hi. I want to start with some comments on the uh, points for consideration. The first comment I wanted to make was to clarify or confirm that these opinions that I'm sharing and the kinds of things I'm talking about comes from the environment that I grew up in and the neighborhood and the state and the part of the country that was my beginning. And in that environment, um, even though I was innocent in terms of understanding its nature and its scope, there were a couple of things that came to mind a little later that I thought I'd share here. The first one is that in looking back, I never knew that the color of my skin was going to be a problem for some other group. It never crossed my mind that that was something that would cause all the difficulties and confusions that would last for generations. I never thought that uh, the fact that I was born into the group that I was born into, that meant that others would uh, be concerned with let's say the texture of my hair or the way I looked, and that would trigger so many emotions within other groups and cause them to form opinions that lasted from generation to generation. And so that was one observation for me that I considered and crossed my mind uh, that others see me as different than they are, and because of those features. And yet, um, the reverse, or how I would see them, is they have a right to be who they are and what they've been given and so forth. Uh, and it doesn't cause me to feel one way or the other about them. So that was one observation or consideration. And the other one was um, I've often wondered whether or not we've truly advanced beyond in spirituality, advanced beyond the caveman mentality that has been around for eons or ages, I should say. And that mentality is he who has the biggest stick wins or rules. And in looking at our culture today, I am hard pressed to find that we've advanced much at all in that mentality. And in fact, most of what I see our society is within our society is the fact we keep trying to develop and find bigger sticks. So those were a couple of things I wanted to share in terms of the kinds of thoughts that come in my mind, come around in terms of me trying to make sense of all of this. So, having said all of that, this video this was to focus on uh, formal schooling or education that starts. In my case, it started first grade, but from kindergarten to beyond high school, college, and so forth. But that formal education program that's been set up that we all go through that is designed for us to position ourselves to be successful in the society and understand its method of operation and to develop more um, technology that helps us to better live our lives. So that was the intent of the formal education part. And the only exception I saw there was the fact that some of us are limited because of access to the same kind of equipment and knowledge and understanding that allows us to fulfill our dreams. And so as a result, we start from a different place and are handicapped in that effort. But I've always looked at from, especially from my perspective, coming from where I came from, knowing that uh, whatever resources we had, we were focused on making the best of those resources. And as we gain access to more resources, we became more capable and self sufficient. So, this idea of restriction of resources, which I'll probably talk about a little later, but uh, the restriction on resources uh, is a key issue in terms of being able to compete on an equal basis. But this formal process of education, which is approved by the society, has uh, has been around for ages, but and has been very successful in improving our society and so forth. But I got to thinking that there is another, what I call here, underlying development that's going on at the same time we're getting this formal education. And that is determining how we're going to interact with our fellow man, how, um, what opinions and ideas are being developed that allow us to look at each other from a different perspective and assume that uh, we predict who and what they are. And we get irritated, and a whole bunch of other emotions develop as a result of how we're perceiving each other as we go through uh, this developmental process. For instance, we pick up certain attitudes that make us think we're better than someone else, more privileged, superior, and that kind of thing. And we develop these characteristics that kind of go along with those attitudes that we have developed. And here I mention uh, the typical type of Karens that seem privileged and think they have a right and ownership to this country of ours or this environment of ours that God had created for everybody. But it's just the nature of them that developed as a result of this uh, here what I call the growth of human challenges that's going on at the same time as the formal education process is going on. Well, in looking at this dynamic, the question came to my mind, is this the origin or the real source of the majority of the problems we face in our country that we can't solve? We keep using certain methods to try and solve it, but we also keep growing through this educational process. We keep growing these individuals that maintain that perspective in life. And so um, there seems to be no end because we're not addressing this real problem. And if you think about it, when a child, any of us, starts out in uh, kindergarten and around that time, we're not um, going into that process with these kinds of ideas. We, as a kid, we were open to what to receive whatever kind of instructions and information we got. But coming out of that same process, we have developed these emotions, these feelings, and these ideas that we are better than someone else, and that then continues within our society because those same kids then become adults who try to maintain the status quo, and as a result, we keep going on this endless loop of maintaining what at the same time we're trying to the attitudes that we're same time we're trying to correct, and we never get anywhere. So the question that came to my mind is this the place that really needs to be addressed in a manner that breaks that cycle? And if we ever did, would that be more effective than the kind of things we keep struggling to do, like legislation and laws and that kind of thing that will finally get us justice? So, anyway, it's just a thought that I had in terms of uh, whether or not this is the area in which we should focus if we're ever going to solve this problem. So, having said all of that, I want to make one more video regarding another thing that happened during this, a couple of things that happened during this period of my growth and development that focused on the struggle for civil rights and for integration and addressing the segregation process. So I want to do that before I switch over to the kinds of things I experienced in adulthood. So thanks for watching, and I hope I see you in the next video.